Hello all. There's been a lot of talk recently around the stat increased rarity of items found, but not a lot of information or data about how it actually works. Observing these other videos and posts, they make it sound like divines will rain from the sky, the economy will be destroyed, and if you stack enough, the world may actually implode from a black hole in the amount of currency that will drop in one location. The real question in all this is, how is anybody even sleeping at night? Naturally, this creates massive FOMO. I want divines to rain down on me while I laugh at the peons who are happy to see one exalted drop. But there is a massive cost, and a trade-off to adding rarity to my gear. How much should I spend, and how weak should I make my character in order to chase this divine dream? Well, I decided to run a test to get a little bit more of an objective view of how the stat works. My goal was to determine the impact of increased item rarity on currency, rare, and unique drops. And how does this scale? Are we growing exponentially until the servers blow up? Now, there are a lot of variables at play here, so this is a challenging and tedious thing to test, which is probably why there isn't much data out there. After going through several iterations, here's where I landed on my test. I set up 4 different tests to compare increased item rarity for 0, 100, 200, and 300 rarity from gear. I randomly picked 20 maps on my atlas, and I repeated those exact maps for each different rarity value, for a total of 80 maps. Now, just running maps has way too much variability. Breaches can be in the open or in tight corridors, maps can have extra rare monsters, pack size, item quantity, item rarity, etc. So in order to reduce variability as much as possible, I decided to do the test on completely vanilla white tier 15 maps. And to sterilize the map, I would open the map once and then reopen it with my white tier 15 map to remove any tower bonuses or map mechanics. I then fully explored the map, killing, looting, and recording every currency, rare, and unique drop I got. I also recorded the amount of gold I gained. I threw every currency, rare, and unique item into a quad tab for each test. I also recorded every value inside of this massive Excel sheet. There is one aspect I have not yet calculated, which is the item level on mod tier level, to see if these were impacted by rarity. I plan to do a follow-up video after I identify all these rares and record the average item level and mod tier, so look for that in the next day or two. Here are my tabs for each of the 4 tests, where I recorded every single value of each drop. And then the more interesting tab, the summary, where I added all these values together. Here you can see I have a column for each of the 4 different tests. Now, special note that I did leave my atlas on, and my atlas has 26 increased item rarity. So, the actual values here is 26, 126, 226, and 326. Now, each of these tests are 20 maps, which really is not enough to definitively say how the stat works, but it can at least give us a rough idea of the trends. Let's start off with gold. As you can see, the first test was 236,000 gold, and the rest of the tests ended at around 300,000 gold. Now, either there's some bad gold luck going on here, or the rarity value very quickly hit some kind of extreme diminishing returns, as the gold value seems to remain unchanged from 126 rarity all the way up to 326 rarity. Looking at Exalted next, it's telling us roughly the same story. We got 12 Exalted from our 26 rarity tests, and then from 126 to 326, we got 23, 24, 26 exalted, so within margin of error. As you can see, our currency values are definitely not going up exponentially. Just going by this data alone, you could say it does seem like it has an impact up to 126 rarity value, but after that, it has little to no impact at all. Next, looking at some of these more rare currencies, not enough of them dropped to really make any conclusions, other than to say they definitely did not start raining from the sky. Looking at some of the more common currencies, the data isn't really showing much difference between the 4 tests. I guess this would be expected unless you believe the quantity of currency increased, in which case this data is definitely suggesting that quantity is not impacted. Next, looking at rares between the tier 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, we again see that our 26 rarity test is lower than the others, and the other 3 seem to have no difference between them at all. Much like the gold and exalteds, this again would point to the 26 rarity tests being some kind of outlier or unlucky, or there's some kind of strong diminishing returns or cap between the 26 and 126 rarity values. Lastly, looking at uniques, the amount dropped is quite small, so we can't draw too much here. The only thing I would say for sure is that the amount of them did not dramatically increase as we increased our rarity, as they all seem within margin of error of each other. So what does the data tell us? Well, here are my 3 takeaways. 1. Increased item rarity does not scale exponentially into some divine utopia. In fact, the data points to the opposite being true. As you stack more and more rarity past 100, it appears to have little to no impact on currency, rare, or unique drops. My current best guess at these super high values is that the impact is mostly placebo. My best guess is that the formula behind the scenes is some kind of logarithmic curve or has some kind of cap. Second, Juicing maps and doing breaches has far more impact than item rarity. Doing 80 white vanilla tier 15 maps was actually kind of painful, and it really shows you how much of your loot comes from juicing maps with lots of rare monsters. If you really want to increase your loot, look for ways to increase the number of rare monsters you kill. And third, rarity appears to have the biggest impact within the first 100 of it or so that you stack on gear. This test wasn't granular enough at that level to know if the value is 50, 75, or 100, but the data does seem to point to it being valuable up to around the first 100. If there's a lot of interest, I could do some more granular testing in the lower rarity levels to dig a bit deeper on what's going on here. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in that test. In the meantime, I'll start identifying and collecting data on item level and mod tiers for all the rares I collected during these 4 tests to see if there's any noticeable differences there. If you found this useful, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.